Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Paul from Guitar Gear Connection. Back a few weeks ago when I picked up my new to me SG, I wanted to convert it into a full George Harrison spec, but I couldn't find one resource that had all the information and all the details needed to make the transformation. So I decided to make a video outlining everything it took for me to convert my 2020 Gibson SG 61 reissue into a full 1964 spec. So stick around and let's see what it takes to make the transformation. Of course, there are some things that I can't change, such as the horn shape and the heel at the neck joint, but overall, one can definitely bring their SG back in time to 1964. So the first mod, and the easiest, is the truss rod cover. Back in the 1960s, the plastics were designed with a much wider beveled edge, revealing more of the white underneath. I purchased mine from Mojo Axe since they came highly recommended. Next mod is the Pickguard. As with the truss rod cover, the Pickguard came with a wide beveled edge as well. Mojo Axe again was my go-to. The third mod is the rings around the pickups. Vintage ones were taller and a bit thicker than today's. So over to Reverb I went and picked up a set of M69 pickup rings. They were pretty easy to install, besides dealing with the spring between the plastic and the pickup. Once you do this mod though, you open up a little bit more work for yourself. Now the 2-screw plastic spacer between the neck pickup and the fretboard doesn't fit correctly due to the thicker plastics from the M69 rings. Thankfully, only a small amount needs to be sanded down off the bottom of the plastic spacer. Next problem is the pickguard. Again, due to the wider plastic of the M69 rings, the pickguard must be sanded down to accommodate. Thankfully, just the non-beveled edges need to be done. Up on the chopping block next is the tuning keys. 1964 SGs came through with double ring Kluson tuners, whereas the reissues today come with a single ring. In order to complete this mod, new bushings on the front are needed as well. Over to StewMac I went and I purchased the Kluson 3+3 Deluxe Tuners in nickel, part number 5176-November. For the bushings, I went with part number 3458, which are their round nickel 3/8 inch conversion tuner bushings. Of course, doing tuners is pretty straightforward. I used a 10mm deep socket to take off the nut bushings, and then I used the small Phillips head for the back 2 screws. I definitely noticed the quality of the Gibson's tuners were a lot better than the Kluson's, and they didn't have this sloppy play in the shaft. First, I gently secured the tuners, then I used an 8mm deep socket to press the bushings in. The only real negative part to this mod is the leftover ring from the previous washer-nut combo. I saw some people online put a washer back on to cover up the marks, but it doesn't bother me and it's very hard to notice. Surprisingly, I was not going to do this mod since I didn't see much benefit, but now it has turned out to be one of my most favorite mods of them all. Those thin bushings make the headstock look so much more period correct. There is one modification, however, that I haven't done yet, and I'm not sure if I'm going to. That's the knobs. To me, the vintage reflector knobs don't look that much different than the reissue ones to warrant the change. Now that we got the aesthetics back to 1964, it's time for the tone changers. Period correct SGs came with nylon saddles, which affect the tonality of the guitar. Most standard production guitars nowadays will come with saddles made out of different types of metals to increase resonance. TonePros makes a replacement bridge with nylon saddles using the most period correct materials on the market. Just loosen the strings, lift off the old one, and put the new one right on. The hardware that comes with it didn't work on my version, so I just used the hardware that was already there. And of course, don't forget to adjust the intonation. When it comes to the pickups, I am happy with the factory 60s burst buckers to achieve the sound I'm looking for. But there are tons of pickups to choose from, and eventually I'll be switching them out in a whole other video. The final mod in bringing my SG to 64 spec is the wiring. Gibson is vague on exact harness specifications, besides hand-wired with orange drop capacitors. After modding my Rickenbacker 360 12-string harness to vintage spec and hearing the night and day difference, which was bigger than even switching out the pickups, I was convinced that the factory SG harness needed to go. I saw some negative reviews about common, expensive pre-made wiring kits. I was planning on building my own until I stumbled upon Kelling Sound on eBay. They make custom harnesses for tons of applications, and they just so happen to have a true 64 spec harness at a fair price. As long as you're relatively good at soldering or have a decent soldering iron, the job is pretty easy. Directions were even supplied showing where the ground, neck, and bridge pickup needed to be soldered to. I just had to extend out the factory ground wire to reach its new location. I do wish I made a sound comparison video before the harness switch, since I can definitely hear a sound difference, especially with how much more the high E and B strings ring out now. So you might be wondering how much money it costs to do all these mods. The truss rod cover was $40, the pickguard was $50, the M69 pickup rings was $23, the Kluson tuners and the bushings was $80, the TonePros nylon saddle was $106, and the vintage wiring harness was $74, for a grand total of $374.54. Now I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering why I just didn't buy a 64 spec Murphy Lab SG. Well, eventually, hopefully I will. But number one, I was able to save a hell of a lot more money by doing it this way. And number two, it gave me much more of appreciation for the guitar, knowing everything that it took to make the transformation. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to email me, guitargearconnection@gmail.com. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. It's what keeps me going. And also check out my Instagram. Tons of cool pictures and videos there as well.